Welcome to Power Talks. In today's special episode, we are discussing about Nepal's beauty and life in Nepal. Nepal is known to the world for the Himalayas and its prospects in high-end tourism. It is believed that you come to Nepal as a guest and you live as a family. How is your family life and your personal life in Nepal?
I have an amazing family that's traveled around the world for 20 years with me. We've been moving from different countries together. Every place we've lived in has fantastic charms, and every place we live in has its disadvantages as well. And we came from New York before Kathmandu. It's a tough place for little kids to live, actually, New York. Kathmandu in many ways is a much easier place for young children. So we're loving getting settled here. We're still getting settled.
Have you traveled a bit in Nepal?
I've traveled a lot to the Terai, and not enough up now into the hills and mountains. It's really my priority to also see a little bit more of Nepal. We have just for a few weeks on holiday to the hills around Pokhara and done some trekking, if that's what you're talking about. Yeah. But I'm still excited to get to see more of the country, and Karnali, of course, is perhaps the most important area that I haven't explored at all yet. So that's my big priority for 2009.
How has been your family life, your personal life? Have you had time to travel with the family to different parts of Nepal?
I wish I could retire in Nepal and have time to see all the places that I want to see with my family. I was lucky enough as a diplomat to visit a number of places, from Dadel-Dura and Dangadi in the west to Biratnagar in the east, Pokhara, Nepalganj, Dhulikhel, Nagarkot, even Kalinchok Mandir. So I saw quite a number of places in Nepal, and give you a taste of more. I want to see more and to interact more. I think it's a fascinating country, and also for my family, it is really a great place to be. All of us like the place, the warmness of people, the kindness, the magnificent views from our home when we can see I think it's Ganesh Himal and some other Himalayan peaks, and to see beautiful Nagarjun. And when you are fed up with the dust in Kathmandu, just to hike to Nagarjun or Shivapuri, it's really marvelous. So I'm very happy that I've been here for 3.5 years, and I'm even more happy that then I have another 1.5 years to go.
You have traveled extensively in Nepal for personal reasons and professional works as well. How has your experience been?
I'm very lucky that since we have a huge support of development assistance in Nepal, I have had the opportunity to travel many places and see life, which is extremely important in order to understand a country. I think many people forget that Kathmandu is not Nepal. And of course we know again some of the problems in Nepal is because you are so diverse, from the Terai to the high mountains, different group, ethnic, religious, language-wise, cultural-wise. But I think that is the charm of Nepal, that you have that diversity. And I have said many times, and I like to say here, make sure you turn that diversity into a strength. Make sure you use that diversity to unite yourself for being Nepali, instead of breaking yourself up, which I think you have had a tendency to do.
Especially in recent time.
Particularly in recent time. I have seen the beauty of Nepal, and you have for sure a very beautiful country. You have beautiful people and friendly people. It has been an enjoyment for me to be in Nepal and get to know you.
You have recently launched Nepal Tourism Year 2011. What is this uniqueness and specialty of this project?
Well, when you talk about uniqueness, I think you forgot to add one more thing. That recently there was this announcement made at global level that Brazil and Nepal are the two most adventure tourism destinations that people should visit. So from that point of view, one more item in the tourism sector has been added, and that is adventure tourism. This country has been known as biodiverse, but people don't know that ethnically we are a very rich country. So from that point of view, 2011 is going to be much more richer event than...
Can I say that one of the specialty of 2011 project is that the conflict that we have, the new conflict we have about the problems with ethnicity, is itself is going to be converted into the positive aspect?
Yes, it should, because right now all the so-called conflict is in fact it's an initial stage of their identity, so it needs to be settled politically.
How hopeful are you that 2011 project will be successful, that it will work?
Yes, that's exactly. We are working very hard for it. In fact, we recently formed 14 committees and 5 regional committees. So from that point of view, this year is going to be much more enriching experience for the tourists.
In terms of economy, that is the global economic crisis, and that certainly is going to block a lot of Western tourist inflow into Nepal. However, there is a great prospect, considering the population in India and China, and the 2 large countries being our neighbors, including South Asia as well. Are you looking into any prospects into bringing in tourists from the South Asia and neighboring countries?
That's a very good question. In fact, we had long thought about this idea before even the recession started. On the north we have China, and the south we have India. Both are, and in fact, doing very well economically. So from that point of view, already we feel that China is now looking more towards Buddhism as one aspect of religious tourism, and India, of course, historically it has always been the Hindu aspect of it. So whenever people say touristic destination, it's always Himalaya or mountains.
Right.
Nowhere you see the Tarai picture, and that's one of the reasons why the Taraians are in a movement. They are saying that they need to be recognized. So we are giving quite emphasis to that also. For the first time, from the ministerial level, the Nepal Airlines Corporation and private sector operators and Han Hotel Association are coming under one package. So already we have started this process, and similarly with China also we are having very good rapport with them. They are willing to give us free visa, and we are working on how we can interact because the people-to-people relation between Nepal and China has to go in par with people-to-people relation between Nepal and India. You see.
Sir Edmund Hillary introduced Nepal and Himalayas in 1950s to the world. Despite half-century efforts of trying to promote the tourism sector of Nepal, we're still struggling. Why is it so?
I think it's very important to know that Hillary was indeed the person who introduced Himalaya and introduced the tourism potentiality in Nepal. But it's also important to note that he represents about nearly 20% of the tourists that come for hard trekking, you see, high mountain trekking. We have many, about 40% of the tourists come for holiday tourism. So from that point of view, it is important to diversify tourism, you see, and that's where our ministry is now trying to diversify. That's why we are bringing homestay. We are also emphasizing on the internal tourism, you see, because now already we have festivities of many ethnic groups themselves coming and celebrating tourism festivities. Ground level, you see, people are coming up to showcase their places, and in fact most interesting aspect of it is that the FNCCI, the local FNCCI, the Chamber of Commerce at local level are in fact organizing such events. And that's why we are saying that economic revolution is the thing, because that will catalyze all other aspects, including tourism.
So how open is your ministry or the government towards foreign investments into the tourism sector in Nepal?
From that point of view, I mean, our ministry is one ministry where we have private-public partnership. In fact, that is the main component of the tourism sector, because we are just facilitating. In fact, most of the work is done by the private sector.
You recently traveled to Germany to promote Nepal Tourism Year 2011. What were the major achievements out of the trip?
I think the first thing is that people there were very curious to see this Maoist minister coming as a tourist minister, and their first question was that there should be a direct flight between Frankfurt and Kathmandu, because many times they have to come via Delhi or via Middle East, and then for them that's very time consuming. So with the coming of new airplanes, we will be concentrating on those areas.
You have talked about a lot of new ventures in the tourism sector, like sports tourism,
adventure tourism.
Adventure tourism and rural tourism, which is very interesting to me.
Rural tourism especially.
And where do you see the market for these tourism sectors?
Well, I would just tell you an interesting event, because when I was in war, we had to travel through dense forest, and while traveling through while trekking through that time itself, I said, wow, this is such a lovely place to explore. In fact, this is what ecotourism is. With all the chirpings of new chirpings, and that's why our ministry is already having this Neutral Planet Fund, where I have myself contributed 10,000 in that bank, so that whoever the tourists come, they plant trees. So we have this plantation of trees as a campaign going from the Nepal Tourism Board. So from that point of view, we are quite aware of aware of the capacity of our country to contribute to the world, in reducing the effect of global warming, in reducing the pollution and all that.
How has your stay in Nepal been so far? Have you had time to travel out of Kathmandu, or does Kathmandu keep you very busy?
Well, Kathmandu has a tendency of keeping one busy, but I have enjoyed my travels out of Kathmandu. I have been in the north to Pokhara, to Jomsom and beyond. And I have been in the Tarai. We have a consulate in Birganj. We have a camp office in Biratnagar, which was set up after the breach in the Kosi embankment. I have also been to Jhapa and Ilam, and I hope to be able to travel before I complete my tenure here. I hope that I will be able to travel to all the 75 districts of this country.
We have seen the political change, but in your point of view, do you see the beautiful landscapes of Nepal change its color, or is it still the same that it was in the past?
It very much depends where I'm photographing, or where whoever it might be, because certainly some areas have incredible nature beauty, such as up in Solukhumbu, the Paplu area, some of these more remote areas that are for the most part unchanged. But then obviously, if you talk about going to the Tarai, right, or going into other areas where there's a denser population, of course the picture frame is changing.
Charles, can you tell us about one of your most memorable moments in Nepal?
The whole country is beautiful, but I suppose the high Himalayas are the summit, not to make a pun of it. I did a story up at the Choa Rolpa Glacial Lake at the top of the Rolwaling Valley, which was a place I'd wanted to go anyway. Looking at the global warming issue, there was an intense human dimension to that as well. The mountains just are a gift to a television journalist like me.
Can you recall some of your best moments in Nepal?
There's been so many. I kind of celebrate every moment that I'm here. Early on, running with Trans-Himalayan traders over passes in the Humla area, and just feeling that freedom through exercise, through walking, through being apart with a team of people, and being able to document that.
You have great interest in sports, especially in the water sports, like skiing, scuba diving, and sailing of the sailboats. Unfortunately, we don't have ocean in Nepal, but have you considered, or have you already tried skiing in the Himalayas?
Sailing, swimming, driving, windsurfing are my sports. So you could imagine it's quite difficult in Nepal. But I'm also a quite good skier. I could ski in Nepal, but what is the right answer? I never tried to ski in Himalaya. Why? Because I think elite skiing is possible on Himalayas, but it's very expensive. It's very dangerous. You could be dropped at 5,000-6,000 meters. It's possible, but it's for a very small elite. The problem in Nepal is that the snow limits are very high. At least 4,500, 5,000 meters. So for commercial exploitation, commercial market is very narrow. So I think it's above all for ultimate sport, ultimate sportmen. But there's a lot of other adventure sport in Nepal with a lot of potential, and you know that the French people are very crazy about this sport.
In 1951, French citizens were the first to climb Mount Annapurna. You yourself have great interest in the wildlife conservation, and especially in Nepal. In your opinion, what is the prospect of Nepal's tourism industry in the present circumstances?
Nepal is a top country in Asia. It remains the unique destination in wildlife in Asia. In Asia, the situation of wildlife, of nature is deteriorating very quickly and very deeply. Since I arrived in Kathmandu end of 2007, I've been shocked about lots of concerns and attacks against the wildlife. Smuggling, poaching, encroachment are very big concern now in Nepal. And I think that the reactions are not strong enough. Conservationism in Nepal is still too weak. And the poachers and the smugglers are criminals, real criminals. And they must be treated as criminals with all the sanctions. So, you know why? Because if you just imagine, after the last tiger, after the last elephant, after the last rhino killed, after the last salt tree cut, what will remain? Nothing. And we have just to say to the tourists, stay at home, there is nothing to see. French people are great lovers of Nepal, everybody knows. Since you said the first climb of the Annapurna in 1951 by Maurice Herzog, thousands and thousands of French came to Nepal for climbing all the big summits and also just practice regular trekking. Also, I think about the cultural aspect. But not only the valley of Kathmandu. I love Kathmandu with the Newar culture, of course, this endless discovery. But if you consider the rest of Nepal, I told you I was making a small run trip in the west central Nepal, Gorkha, Dandipur, Tensan. Tensan is a wonderful city. This is a huge potential. And you have some customers. You have special market for this kind of tourism in France. I think we have great potential. France is the third market for Nepal. 30,000 people are coming every year, more and more, in more and more number to Nepal. But the limits of this market is a connection. We have no direct flight for Nepal.
You've traveled to all the three distinct geographical regions of Nepal, the mountains, the hills, and the flatlands. How do you see the economic variations in these three distinct geographies?
Well, I think Kathmandu and the Terai are clearly the economic heartland of Nepal. Incomes there are highest, population density is highest, the infrastructure is best. Although there are, of course, some pockets of poverty also in the Terai, in the rural areas. But overall, the economic potential of these areas is the highest. There's the agricultural plains and the lowlands are having much higher yields than in the hills or on the mountains, of course. And industry is also concentrated in those areas. As for the mountains, the economic potential there is extremely limited, essentially tourism. Where there's tourism, incomes are relatively high, but where there's none, people are extremely poor. So here it is the government's job to provide the connections to enable more tourists to come into those regions and raise the incomes of the local population. In the hills, in the middle, there are also topographical challenges. The road connections are very difficult. But there's also more opportunities. There are some agricultural, especially in niche products for specialized markets. There's also potential for tourism, and hydroelectric power generation may also provide income.
What are your personal reflections on the trip to Mustang, which is one of the world's most beautiful destinations?
It really was one of the most beautiful places I've been in. A very interesting way. You had the high Himalayas and that showed you the snow caps with this very desolate but very beautiful foreground of canyons and rivers. Also a very stark reminder of just how this beauty extracts a heavy price for the people who live there, that it is not an easy environment in which to live. It is cold, it's difficult for transportation and communication, but we saw a number of changes, and I think how they manage those changes that allow them to keep their unique culture. The cell phone towers had already been created in Jomsom. They were on their way to Lomantang. The airfields that allow the helicopters to come into Lomantang and airplanes into Jomsom clearly have an influence. I remember listening to the pilgrim stories when I was here before. Now you can go to Muktinath in a jeep. So that is a very different way to get goods and services. Still obvious that it is hard to get government services, to get teachers and doctors and the health clinics, the schools to function as they do in other parts of Nepal. And so those are going to be challenges. As the road comes in, what changes does that bring? Certainly it makes it much easier for people to get goods and to move around, but it also could do very big damage to the environment. It may bring in a lot of outsiders, and those are issues that the people in Mustang, the government in Nepal, are going to need to consider. But I was also impressed. I'm not a trekker by nature, and you had a full appreciation for just how difficult life is for people that need to do this on a daily basis, or certainly in order to get the basic needs that they have. I did it for 10 days. I can't imagine doing it for a lifetime, and I have a real admiration for their stamina and how well they cope with their environment.
Malaysia is a success story when it comes to tourism, and Nepal has natural assets to develop tourism, but we are still struggling with it. How can we utilize the expertise and technical supports from Malaysia to raise the tourism sector of Nepal?
In 1997, when we had the Asian financial crisis, we have only about 5 million tourists visiting Malaysia. But last year there was 24.8 million. So I think it's a tremendous growth in the tourism sector. I think Nepal has to look at Malaysia, how we organize our Visit Malaysia year. So we had a big campaign. So I'm sure you have seen the TVs, Malaysia Truly Asia.
Malaysia Truly Asia.
I think it's a very successful campaign. And in fact, it's so successful, we wanted to keep the tagline to continue for many years to come.
I think it sounds very good.
Many years to come. And I think when we do our promotion, international promotion, the government works very closely with the private sector, whether it's hoteliers or tour agents and other important players. So we undertake a joint promotion tour overseas, and we jointly promote the country. And also we allocate a big budget for tourism promotion. So much so, tourism has become the biggest revenue earner for Malaysia, not petroleum or manufactured goods, tourism. And I think we have shared our experience and expertise with Nepal. But 2 years ago, we have taken a big delegation from Nepal, led by the Minister of Tourism and Civil Aviation, together with officials from Ministry of Tourism. So we have shared our experience and knowledge and in areas as how we have promoted Malaysia as a tourist destination. And we also taken him to Malacca, the whole tour, delegation we have taken to Malacca. Malacca is a very interesting place. It's less than 1 million people, but last year about 8 million people have visited Malacca, and it has no natural resources. I think Nepal should look more towards the immediate neighbors, and particularly Southeast Asia and Asia. I think the big markets are here, next to your doors. China, India, Southeast Asia, Japan, and East Asia too. Japan, South Korea. I think the people are becoming very prosperous. I think they have big spending capacity. I think Nepal should more concentrate in promoting the tourism in this area.
Korea and Nepal are both very rich in cultural heritage, especially in connection to Buddhism. Can we look at an increased cultural exchange programs between Nepal and Korea to benefit each other and to create better friendship?
Buddhism is a very deep common ground between our two countries and two peoples. Recently I heard of some development plan in Lumbini, and I am personally interested, and I would dare say my government is also interested, and my people are also interested. So if there is a request by your government to do something, request Korean side to do something for Lumbini development, then I will pay keen interest. I will take a favorable consideration to that, and I will advise my government to do that.
There is a knowledge about the assets and the prospects of tourism that we have in Nepal. So how do we get the actual calculation of where this country can move ahead, in what speed and what dimension in terms of achieving its full potential of tourism?
You don't promote tourism at a desk with a computer. I mean, if you want to secure tourism in a country like Nepal or Switzerland for that, you must make sure that your local population benefits from it and sees the advantage. I mean, for the Nepali citizens living in the villages, tourists must be more than just someone coming across with a big camera, you know, and a large rucksack with a lot of porters, etc. They must get something from it.
Engaged.
Yes. I mean, these taxes that are levied all over the place, they need to come back into the villages. They need to help to strengthen the homestay, the capacity of the villages to actually have tourists stay in those. It's not so much one of achieving certain objectives, so many million tourists, etc. Of course, that is important, but it's more what kind of quality of tourism and what is the quality of the tourism and its interaction with the local population.
Thank you for being with us. We'll be back next week at the same time with another special episode. Till then, good luck and goodbye.